Good afternoon, everybody. We're just waiting for people to filter into the Zoom feed, and we'll start in a second. So the room's filling up quite nicely for us now. We'll give it another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll begin.
It's like having a birthday party and hoping somebody turns up to your party, isn't it?
Yeah, it was or the beginning of the Hobbit. You know, people come in one by one, as they. So it's a literary allusion for you there. Starting highbrow, James.
Clearly.
We're going to stay there. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this REC webinar on changing attitudes to recruitment, built on our Recruitment for Recovery report and campaign, which was launched at the tail end of last month. I'm Neil Carberry, the REC Chief Executive. Delighted to have you along for this session, which we're really aiming at thinking about how we as an industry communicate with clients about the value that we add and indeed kind of move our competitive position on to survive in a very different economy to the one which we had perhaps before COVID, but certainly before the onset of the digital revolution that we've seen over the last 5 or so years. So delighted to have you along today, joining us both via Zoom and via YouTube Live. We're doing some polls during today's webinar. I'm sorry to say you can only vote if you joined us through the Zoom link, but clearly we'd be interested in views off YouTube Live, and the team are looking at comments on the YouTube Live feed, and we'll feed that into me and to our panelists here today. Karen, could we move the slide on one, please? So first things first, delighted to be joined by 2 fantastic speakers today. James Osborne, Chair of the Recruitment Network, and Katrina Collier, author, speaker, and facilitator from The Searchologist. Many of you will know Katrina from her book, The Robot Proof Recruiter. Thank you both for joining us. Welcome to today's webinar. James, good to see you.
Lovely to see you again. I've seen quite a lot of you recently, which is great. I'm finding that as a positive.
Well, I'm trying to be as ubiquitous as possible, which is easier in this digital age. And Katrina, thank you for joining us as well.
Thanks, Neil. Good to be here.
So let's take the slide on one. The real starting point for us on this is the work that we published last month on the role and importance of the UK's recruitment industry. And I talk a lot about this in terms of us as an industry walking with our head held high on the difference that we make around the 3 big themes you can see on this slide, that recruitment is already one of our most important service industries and a major driver of productivity, gross value added well in advance of 80 billion across the economy, with lots and lots of businesses saying that it's only through the services that they get from the industry that means that they can survive and thrive in the sectors that they're working in, but also turning that lens onto the individual. And I think we've all learned to think about individuals a lot more and with greater humanity over the last year. That getting this right opens up the right opportunities for people, boosts inclusion. We talk a lot about every 21 seconds, someone finding a new permanent role through the industry, the fact that the industry places more people out of unemployment, twice as many people out of unemployment as job centres do. And of course, the fact that the vast majority of businesses who work with the industry say that it helps them achieve their goals, including on diversity. So on those 2 things, a really clear set of data from us last month, pointing out the importance of recruitment to the UK economy and the fact that we think there's more to come. We could boost productivity further, but part of that is about understanding how the sector is changing and the value that getting recruitment right adds. Now, a bit of that sits with me and with the REC in terms of the wider messaging to government and to the British economy about the value of recruitment, but a lot of it comes down to our client relationships and our candidate relationships, and showing the difference that recruitment done well can really make. And that's what today's webinar is all about. So I want to start with a little taster poll just to see where you think things are right now. So Karen, if we could load up poll one. Poll one asks about where you think the picture is at the moment. How do your clients perceive recruitment? Is it a crucial support system for their business? Do they see you as an occasional consultant who delivers some services alongside that, or do they see that you as a kind of a service that they need to retain rather than something more fundamental? So we'll just let those votes take off. And interesting to see that as it develops, about 70% of those on the Zoom call have now voted. If you are on the YouTube live, just pop a comment in, and we'll follow that through. Well, if we look at the results now, we can see that actually there is a clear winner there by a couple of votes, which is around crucial support system for businesses. And that's where we want 100% of the votes to be. It's where you'd expect 100% of the votes to be for a law firm, for instance, in a professional services space. Reasonably large chunk. The majority still in the occasional consultant or necessary service position. Over 50% of the votes there. That emphasizes, I think, the challenge that we have as a sector to get through the difference we can make to clients. So really good insight of how things are changing in the market right now, and I think that comes out of our support, out of our campaign work. We see clients who are doing things fundamentally differently, building really deep partnerships with professional services, delivery focused recruitment firms, and we see clients who still think of it as a service to be bought like paper clips. So changing times, I think, is fair. We've seen in our work, James, that a majority of firms say that they couldn't be successful without us. So if we move on from the poll now, what are you seeing amongst TRN members and active recruiters in terms of how client relationships are changing now, and what's working for TRN members in encouraging that change along the road?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question right now. And we're seeing this evolve significantly over the last 12 months. It's changed from what it was at the beginning of lockdown. It's changing again, and it will continue to change. I slightly disagree with the wording on your poll, actually. And I'll tell you why, because we're talking about recruitment as a function and not necessarily a recruitment organization as a partner or supplier. And I think organizations do certainly see recruitment right now as a fundamentally important part of their agenda moving forward. So I get that piece. I'm not convinced still that the majority of clients see the majority of recruitment organizations as their strategic partner. And that's a big concern for me. It's also a huge opportunity as well, because those organizations that are repositioning themselves in more what I refer to as a linear relationship. So rather than a hierarchical relationship where you've got clients above here and consultant or agency down here, recruiter down here, we're all on the same level, working together to achieve the same objectives, solve the same challenges and issues and problems. So, the work that we've done, or I say we've done, the members at TRN have done particularly well over the course of this year, is actually just reposition themselves. They said, look, we no longer want to be a transactional, arm's distance supplier of a product or service to you, Mr. or Mrs. Client. What we want to do is come into the main meeting room, work with you on strategy, talk to you about your future plans, challenge your future plans, give you insights and data and maybe where you're getting it wrong and your thinking is wrong, and then support you with that with a great suite of products that we've got that potentially can help you deliver that. So I think as a function, recruitment is deemed as critically important. I'm still not convinced yet that organizations treat us with the right level of respect that they would do of a function that is so critically important.
I think that's a really important point, James, and I'd recognise that from the discussions that we have with REC members as well, in terms of, we call it out a bit in our report. You know, every chief executive for the last 2 decades has said people are our greatest asset. They've started to realise over the last few years, driven by all sorts of work, including Bruce Daisley's work on engagement and other key thinkers in the kind of business thought leadership space. They started to realise that it's more than just words. They have to follow that up. I'm not sure that's yet flowed through to the people who are managing relationships with recruitment businesses in terms of thinking through where is the value add here. Certainly I've seen examples of client firms looking for partners in different places and saying, actually, when they realize what they could be doing with a recruitment partner, coming back and say, we never have thought to do it this way. And some of it is, of course, about the seniority of the discussion recruitment business leaders are having, because there's a big gulf between managing a PSL and thinking about the changing structure of the business and future talent needs, which is the room that you really want to get inside, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. But I don't think, it doesn't have to be senior level conversations about senior level strategy type stuff. Yes, we want every recruitment owner to be in the boardroom talking strategy with the owner, with the key clients and the key board of their organizations. But we also want recruiters to have the confidence and ability to talk about the insights, where the markets are going, what they're doing wrong, what other people are doing. We should be, we always talk about recruiters being phenomenal storytellers, which I absolutely agree. And the stories we should be telling our customers are basically the stories of where their competitors are currently taking market share from them, or they're taking talent from them, or taking their talent even, telling stories about that and the impact that's therefore having on their business and therefore why they need to change.
Look, I think that's absolutely right. And I was discussing this with Chief Executive of Recruitment Group this morning, actually, thinking about, how they could use our data. We produce loads of monthly data at the REC, and it's not just about dumping it on the table. I mean, actually, he was talking to his investors about trends in the market using our data, but the same would be true about talking to clients. It's about how do you weave a story together about what will change. I've found myself more and more in the last 6 months doing kind of client events for REC members, talking to them about the changing shape of the British economy, the changing shape of the labour market, helping people to understand that while unemployment is rising now, there are big demographic and immigration trends that mean the tight labour market will come back sooner, and the fast changing economy means that will make those skill shortages even greater. That kind of narrative and that kind of focus is not something that will exist internally in client businesses, and it is something there for recruiters to really own, to have that discussion. James, I think you're absolutely right. Katrina, I mean, famously, of course, you wrote the book on recruiters surviving disintermediation by digital technology in the robot-proof recruiter. I think a lot of what we've been talking about so far kind of proves the thesis that you were setting out back when you published the book.
Yeah, well, I didn't publish it that long ago, but I guess it was pre-pandemic. Much of what you have been talking about is all about using your human skills to create better relationships and to sit up and partner with an organization properly. And that's whether you're an in-house recruiter or a staffing agency recruiter. Either way, that's what you're looking for. But those skills aren't developed anymore. We tend to hire like graduates who have no business experience, so no job experience. They don't understand what it's like to get somebody to change jobs, or we don't train them with those soft skills, those human skills that, you know, we have in bucket loads because we have years of experience of working, and we were around before technology took over recruitment or got in the way, really. And they're skills that, you know, fundamentally need to be developed, particularly as we go forward and we start coming out of this. You mentioned before we came on about a fear of changing jobs. Well, yes, people are going to have great fear because household name companies disappeared during 2020. So people will be like, oh, I'm not moving. So it's going to involve that as well on the candidate side and the client side. But definitely there needs to be, as James was saying, that step up to partner. And that's an attitude shift. You know, it's I mean, one of the reasons I started the Hiring Partner Perspective podcast as well was because it needs a hiring manager's shift of attitude as well, to actually together we're going to fill this role, whether I'm using external or internal recruiter. It's partnership, and it's a huge shift that needs to happen.
And if I could just touch on that, if you don't mind, Neil, I think it's a really, really important point. And with the stuff that you're doing, Katrina, with the hiring manager, I think it's spot on. But we're in a really interesting situation right now when we think about it, where go back 6-7 months ago, we were all complaining about there wasn't enough business out there. So we all put on our business development hats and went out there and did all the good stuff. And we now got a situation where we have almost capacity issues more than anything else. You know, how do we fill all these jobs? And one of the main reasons why we've got capacity issues, and I think it's a slightly false economy, is because the hiring managers now are almost throwing jobs at us and throwing jobs at recruiters, which are contingent, a little bit sporadic, a little bit sort of bulk. Mm-hmm. Here they go, just crack on with it. We need to get going now type of stuff without any proper thinking, without any proper planning. How can
I think that's because a lot of companies knee-jerk reacted and let go of too many staff.
Yeah, for sure.
There was, I mean, because no one's ever been through this before. So, well, not in this sort of century anyway. And so they panicked, let go of too many people. Now they realize they need to hire them back. And they're struggling to hire them back as well, because some people won't go back.
Yeah.
So there's that going on as well. Doesn't answer your question, but
there's a whole thing here about there being a moment of deep market change. And I think you both hinted at this, which is there's an opportunity for us to choose our own destiny. As in, do we want to go down the route of let's just chase the top line and get as much work through the books as possible, which is a very good kind of principle in steady state operation, and it's how recruitment will always be a sales sector. It's really important to do that. Or do we actually want to be a bit more careful about client choice? As in thinking about which relationships we built up with which clients that allow us to do more exclusive, more retained, the famous Greg Savage holy grail, as it were, of kind of getting to that world where we are deepening and monetizing relationships which are built on professional skill. Lots of kind of recruitment business leaders have that skill, but as Katrina has said, we need to invest in a kind of the next generation. And there is a challenge there, which is, talk to the REC to REC guys at the moment. Hiring is pretty hot for experienced consultants with the skills to do that. So I think there might be, do you think there's a big challenge here, Katrina, in terms of how we train our consultants for this new world?
Well, actually go back a step. There needs to be a change in the leadership of the bigger agencies. If you are saying, like you're almost saying, do the work you want to do. I work with the clients I want to work with. I don't work with all of the people that approach me. There needs to be a match. But you don't get that necessarily in the agencies because they're much more about that. We've got bottom line, you've got SLAs, you've got to, bill. And that needs to change now. I mean, one, because the internal teams are doing so incredibly well. But there's the same shift, by the way. There's the same need for them to also be developing the soft skills, as I keep calling them. It's the stuff I teach in the masterminds in my 12-month program, and watching the recruiters that are coming through that, and I almost say like they grow wings. I know that sounds really strange, but their whole attitude shifts from I'm subservient to I'm partner, and so because you sort of said two different things. Yes, going forward, I would love to see more of this partnership. I honestly sit up when I explain it, like this shift of attitude. You and I would just naturally be like, we're going to partner you. We wouldn't accept it. But when you're younger or less experienced, you just, I'm so grateful for the role. But then the pressure needs to come off from the leaders of the bigger recruitment agencies who tend to be more SLA driven. There needs to be a shift there.
I think there's a couple of points in this though, and I think and I find this fascinating. I mean, I think if you look at what we've gone through for the last 12 months, we've gone through maybe three different cycles or different periods of this. We're in a new one coming out now. I think going back 6 months ago, there was nothing wrong with doing the panic, go around and just try and win any business you can get your hands on type stuff. Because you know what? We needed cash. Businesses needed cash. They needed to hoard cash. So that's what you need to survive. So we had to think short term right now. We're in the trenches. You roll your sleeves up. I think now we've got an opportunity to think longer term. And I think our customers need to think longer term with us. I think that's important. So we need to start taking a bit more of a bigger picture view, I think, and then going after what is the detrimental impact long term of working with rubbish business, poor commodity type business, lower margins, etc. So I think people are taking more of a steering of that. The other piece, though, around the talent piece, and this is a really fascinating one, is about the dearth of talent in the recruitment sector. There's not enough recruiters out there. I mean, I still find it amazing that so many recruitment organizations just don't put anywhere near enough effort into the hiring of their own recruitment talent for their own businesses. And hiring could also mean developing, graduate academies, et cetera, but we don't do that. We become very reliant on some of the Rec Directs, and don't get me wrong, some of the Rec Directs are absolutely superb and are important for your growth, but that can't be your only strategy. Otherwise you're almost like losing control of your ability to grow your business. And I had a guy 3 days ago based in Reading, and he sent me a message on LinkedIn, and he basically said, I work in Costa Coffee. I've never been in recruitment before. I'm 19 years old. I'm about to finish my degree. I would love to work in recruitment. It sounds amazing. I thought I'd reach out with you and I really wanted to pick your brains. And I thought the audacity, the confidence for him to do that was superb. We had a call yesterday. So on Sunday, he took a call with me, or whatever day it is today, on Sunday. We took a call together and we had the conversation. And basically, I gave him some tips and some ideas. I gave him some access to some of our training course and that type of stuff. And the guy wants to get into recruitment. This is a 19-year-old who works in Costa. You put your CV in front of me. Yeah, but you put your CV in front of us, we wouldn't have had a chance. I think there is some amazing talent out there. And I say talent in the sense of talent that's waiting to be created into talent, the potential. There's some brilliant skills, confidence, and attitude out there that we need to bring into our industry pretty damn quick. Otherwise, we won't have enough talent.
What did he have? He had curiosity. He had fearlessness. Like he obviously had great communication skills, or you wouldn't have answered him. And I don't see those. I mean, that's the sort of stuff. Some people look at the mastermind and they go, why are you developing fearlessness? Why are you developing curiosity and trust and empathy and compassion? I'm going, because it's missing. It's not everybody has it. And to be great on either side, so with your hiring managers or with your candidates, you absolutely need that in bucket loads. And you alluded to the diversity and inclusion thing as well, like the curiosity to yourself. If you don't have that like self-awareness and curiosity about your own thinking, then the bias comes in and off it goes. So it's, I think you're right, James. I think we need to be changing how we're recruiting the people that bring in the people, whether they're against. I speak for both because I do both sides. I don't really focus on one or the other.
Well, you're both aware that we examine the recruitment apprenticeship. We don't, training providers provide it, but we're the endpoint endpoint assessors for it. And what's really interesting about that, and I think it speaks, Katrina, to your point about our ability to be medium and long term in terms of our thinking about staff development, is there are REC members who are really invested in that, and they haven't had everyone they put forward stuck at it. They've come through the other side. It's working really well for them, but we know that the stickability rate on the apprenticeship through its length is not what I think the group of businesses that put it together would have wanted it to be. So it comes right back to that mindset piece, and James's point around how do we move on to a discussion that's more about the business that we want to have in the medium and long term, because we're out of that period of kind of extreme emergency that we had last spring.
Are they young? So when you say apprentices, we're talking about so I go back to my earlier point, which is they don't understand how important it is. Like, we play with people's lives. Actually, somebody tried to correct me the other day and say we play with a portion of the people's lives. That's not true, because fundamentally your salary, your contract rate, whatever it is paying all your bills, keeping food on the table, roof over your head, school fees, dogs fed, blah, 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 right? It's full on what we do. And I just not convinced you can do that without experience. Now, James's Costa Coffee gentleman has worked, so he's kind of got it, but not necessarily. That happens far less now. I was out working at Kentucky Fried Chicken at 15. Not everyone was doing that like these days, particularly. So they don't understand the importance of work and income, and that's maybe some of the reason it doesn't. When they then get into the real world, they don't really get the importance. And then are they given the time as well? I just think it takes time to gain those, like the understanding. And to become truly successful.
And the professional pride, to bring it back round to your point of earlier, which is, one of the things I've said a lot about the campaign. I should say, if you want to drop anything on social media about this discussion or the campaign, the hashtag is hashtag recruitment for recovery. And you can check out all the campaign materials at rec.uk.com/recruitment recovery. But when I talk about this campaign, I talk about businesses not going to court without the best lawyers, the kind of advice that you receive on your annual financial statements from your accountants. We are as an industry in a position to be in that class of advisor to client businesses. But the skill sets that requires, I think, are different to perhaps what we've invested in the past, especially as a lot of what we've invested in the past, is liable to digitization. The one thing I would say about digitization, James, I'm interested in your thoughts on this. I think one of the key skill sets for any recruiter in getting this right is to realize that the digital piece is absolutely essential. The AI piece as it comes will be absolutely essential. But the art is how to buy it well. I mean, one of the trends I've picked up in the market in the last year or two is a sense of some firms struggling to decide which way to go on their digital buys. And that sense of this transformation of the client relationship. Come to the subject of Katrina, the title of Katrina's book, The Robot Proof Recruiter. The robots are with us. It's just that the recruiters are also with us. Within the TRN network, are you seeing attitudes to how technology will be applied in the industry differ as we come through all of this?
Yeah, I always find the technology argument fascinating, because sometimes we talk about tech in recruitment as if it's this sort of mysterious thing that's out there that's going to come and take it. It's not. Technology's everywhere, right? I mean, I've got a 14-year-old, 11-year-old child. I haven't spoken to them for 6 months. They've just been on their tech. I don't know what they're doing, and they don't know my name anymore. That's just the reality of life. And I think, everybody's on tech. Everything we do is tech-led. We're doing tech now, right? It's the thing. So to me, the question is, there's some brilliant tech out there. There's also some bloody awful tech out there, which disguises itself as tech, and it's not. It's an Excel spreadsheet with a macro, but they think it's AI. Are you
talking about the track and trace for COVID? Oh no, sorry, I didn't say that.
That's totally unnecessary comment, Katrina. And we'll put on it. So anyway,
remains an apolitical organisation.
But I'm the searchologist. I can say what I want.
Absolutely. We're just the hosts.
I'm surprised it's taken you that long to come up with that one. But anyway,
you led me there. You led me there. You said spreadsheet. It was like red flag.
I know. The point I'm making is, like, tech is here. It's around us. You can't get away, but no one's going to suddenly put it to one side. What I think we've got wrong, or what we have a lot of recruitment companies are getting wrong, is they haven't worked out, first of all, what their base foundational infrastructure needs to look like to then work out what tech they need. Classic example, and Neil, for years, I'm not a fan of the 360 model as a standalone model in a recruitment company. I think you always get 360 consultants, of course. I think they're quite anomalies now in this day and age. And I love the idea of having a service delivery capacity, and account management capacity, and a business development capacity. What the BD recruiters, the BD people need is very, very different from what a recruiter needs and what an account manager needs. They're a different skill set. They're different people we're trying to find. So we look at the business and go, why don't we give all of our staff this new tool? And we wonder why only 10% of them are using it, why we're only getting a 15% ROI out of it, and that type of stuff. When people start looking at the business foundation first, okay, what are we going to do to make sure that we can get the most capacity, productivity, performance, and profitability out of every single body in our business, whether they are a receptionist, whether they are working in finance, whether they're a recruiter, sales, whatever. And then we identify what is the toolkit they need that is not going to get in their way and be a distraction, but is going to elevate their ability to be faster, quicker, more effective, less bias, and all that sort of good stuff that is really important to their role. And I think the first thing we've got to do is work out the foundations of what makes a scalable recruitment business and allow us to then take it to the next level. I think by doing that, by the way, you'll find a hell of a lot easier to find your next 2 or 3 recruiters or people within your business, because you're now not looking for the ultimate person 360, which I just don't think there are many of them out there. I mean that's why the REC Directs are so busy, because they've got their hands on a really cool bunch of 360s that are worth their weight in gold right now if you can get them.
I didn't even know they weren't all 360s these days. I just assumed they were. I'm old school. But just to clarify something there, and to add to what James just said, like going to the bit you were talking about AI, I roll, monumentally I roll every time I hear AI, because we're using really crap data. So AI, you can use it as a sourcing tool, be amazing. I'm just going to deliver James to you and you'll just recruit him. No, I won't, because James can't write his profile, or his CV sucks, so he doesn't come up on the search, so you miss him. And this is the bit where I get really frustrated. And actually, the book isn't about not using tech, it's about using it in such a way that the humans put first, but never purchase technology, particularly if it's for the sourcing side or saving you time side, or interview scheduling, whatever it is, but never purchase technology that hasn't been created with recruiter input or by a recruiter, because they don't understand what we do. And what we do is just so unique.
Yeah.
So, and I just think that's so incredibly important, because you'll get, and I talk to them because they come to me and say, oh, can you be on our advisory board? And it's like, you don't have any recruitment experience. Like, where do you think this helps? Where's this saving time? Where's this allowing them to create a better relationship with their clients or their candidates? And it's fundamentally missing so often. I mean, you talked about like the inside the company. I'm sort of talking about the outside tools.
Yeah,
actually, just sorry, I wanted to say this just before, one quick thing as well. In-house has this problem as well. I had a director of talent acquisition very, very proudly state, I cannot possibly teach my recruiters how to source. They're maxed out. And that's another problem. Like, are we actually giving people the time to learn and grow and be curious and all those sorts of things? So, and I think that's a problem both sides of the equation. And then that leads on to the tech. Are we actually getting the right tech, or are we just giving them tech to use? Oh, well, it's a great sourcing tool, so I can spam more people because they're not taught how to use it.
You must adopt this technology, because this technology will increase productivity. Well,
or it plugs into the ridiculous HR system we have, but actually is useless for recruitment and stuff like that.
And we have to sit there and go, yes, we will do this, even though it's putting time into the business. I think that piece of advice about buying technology that's had recruiter input is really important.
Really
one of the things I talk to REC member chief executives about is how vendor driven the rec tech market is. And the first thing you should do in thinking about your base digital platform, as James says, and the things which will enable you, is understand your own business and understand what you need and whether something will do it for you. Because actually, a couple of things. One, sometimes you don't actually need the top of the range model. You need something that works. And often that generic stuff is quite a lot cheaper and involves burning less of your cash pile. But equally, if you are going big on some kind of super whizzy CRM product, understand what you're buying. And that means having somebody in your team who doesn't have an agency problem because they're being paid by someone else. And
make sure your people have time to feed the CRM as well.
Well, absolutely. that kind of helps.
But, so Neil, you probably don't know how the book came about. I was asked, Kogan Page actually came to me and asked me if I'd like to write a book, which is like unheard of. And the inner child just went, oh my God, we're going to write this. And I was so fed up with the vendors telling recruiters that they're going to be replaced by technology. Now, don't get me wrong, I do think order takers, and they're the people who just put up with whatever 3-year-old job descriptions thrown at them and won't push back and won't do a proper intake strategy. Those kind of people, I do actually think will get replaced by technology. But I think the proper consultative, those kind of people, I absolutely think will be fine going forward and can work with technology. Thank you very much, David Creighton, by the way. So I just saw his lovely little comment there.
He's a big fan. And David is demonstrating, of course, the fact that the Q&A box is available for anyone who wants to ask questions. So
anyone else wants to praise me, knock yourself out.
Yeah, absolutely. You are also you are also able to praise James if you would like to. I'm not feeling needy today. I'm still basking in the glow of Scotland's victory in Paris on Friday night.
James does win on the hair front, let's be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're painting a bit of a picture here, which is that we're actually feeling pretty optimistic about the sector and the ability for us to choose our future if we get a few key things right. And one of them is about the skill set that we need on our own staff, and one of them is about getting our digital offer right and balancing out the stuff that's delivered by the people with the efficiency that's delivered by the tech. That feels to me like a really positive place to be, to kind of begin to build that on the level relationship that we've been talking about earlier. Let's bring the client a bit closer to this then. One of the things that was really clear from the 2,000 candidates that we talked to for the Recruitment for Recovery report was that they didn't feel that client businesses recruited particularly well a lot of the time. That they'd been ghosted, they'd had people had very differing experiences, and of course in a tight labour market, and I've been clear earlier on, I think Britain will face a tight labour market much quicker than everyone thinks right now. Partially demographics, there are more people born in the 1950s than were born in the 2000s. Partially big economic change and skill set pressures. We all know that there are issues around net immigration to the UK over the next 5-10 years, driven by the new immigration system settling in. So there's a whole slew of things there that says skills will likely to still be in quite tight supply. So candidate experience, employer brand, all of that stuff, and it's linked to the productivity of people once they arrive, once they land. That seems to me to be just as important, and possibly one of the risks to the professional services image that we're trying to develop for the industry is clients not quite seeing that, not quite appreciating that. I mean, Katrina, why don't you kick us off? What do you see now in that sphere?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm seeing some stuff that makes my skin crawl, if I'm honest. So all the way through this, I haven't shown it.
Excellent. By the way, available in all good bookshops.
Yeah, I donated my royalties to the most incredible charities, so please buy a copy. Buy a whole team. The royalties go to Hope for Justice, who aim to end modern day slavery. So every time I show the book, I'm not lining my pocket.
Hugely important cause.
Oh God, unbelievable charity. Anyway, I'm off topic. So when I thought about this, like I all the way through the Robot Proof Recruiter, and every time everyone hears me talk, I'm like, give feedback, you dreadful people, give feedback. And I go on and on and on about it. But I got caught out in this. Jeffrey Shapiro has a tweet. You'd have to go down his thread and see it now. And he shares a screenshot of the response a director of talent acquisition gave him. And he blotted the guy's name out, which was very good of him. I wouldn't have done that. When he knocked him back for the role. And it accused him of being like ageist and racist and you name it. And it was so full of venom. And I was always like, you must give feedback. It's so important. And I started talking. And apparently recruiters get at least one of these a week. This like venom laden like straight back at them about feedback. There's a point I'm making. I'm just being long-winded. But that was the director of talent acquisition. That is somebody that works in our industry to one of our own who should understand that a screenshot of that could permanently damage his career, but yet clearly in the moment didn't care. But then that goes straight back to empathy and compassion and understanding, putting yourself in those shoes. What would it be like if it was me? And it really has been, for the grace of God, go I in this pandemic as to what industry you're in, whether you have a job. Like I lost every last penny of my income in March last year. Not everybody experienced that. Some people have sailed through. I've got neighbors who are like, whatever, I'm still working, I'm fine. You know, they're just working at home. So everyone's had a different experience. And I think that when it comes to the companies, there's not, again, going back to those human skills, there's not enough training. That the the heads of the company, like you alluded to at the beginning, Neil, do understand that people are their most important asset, as cliched as it sounds, but let's not invest in the people bringing in the people, or invest in the leaders who have to interview and work with agencies or in-house. Let's not invest in that. And that's got to shift. So there's like, again, it goes straight back to all of the human skills. But I can kind of understand why the feedback's not happening at the current time.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? That humanity piece, which, you know, and maybe the silver lining of the pandemic is we've all learned a bit about humanity through this period. But again, you know, thinking about that 360 to 180 shift, you're looking at putting a team around clients. One of the things we can do as part of this shift we're talking about is start to support hiring managers in terms of how they approach their recruitment processes. We've had a great piece of work that we've been doing with the CCS, the UK Civil Service, over the last 3 or 4 months, which a number of members, particularly Carmen Watson and Pertense, have been helping us with, which is about how do we improve civil service recruitment, and that's all about diversity and inclusion. And on that, what CCS said to us is, what could you do for us? You know, what are you willing as an industry to sign up to doing? And we said, well, there's all sorts of things we could do. Here's a list. But the most important thing is we want a similar list from your side to us. You know, what are you going to do? Because we talk about civil service recruitment, for instance. It's great that they have high standards, but often you get these proxies, you know, was in a Big Four. Well, great. Or, you know, McKinsey's a fantastic organization. The Big Four are fantastic organizations. But if you're looking for someone who was trained there 15, 20 years ago, later on in their career, they weren't fantastically diverse organizations in 1995 or 2000. And because of that, you're breeding in some things that you say you don't want. And that more mature on the level conversation, I think, comes from the ability of clients to understand that what we can do to support and challenge back. And I think that thing about challenging back, being that true consultant and support to clients, is going to be really important, especially as we're getting a lot of narrative. I'm a fellow of the CIPD in the HR world of employee engagement being dead. I think that's probably true. I've always been a fan of employee relations anyway. It's actually about how do you persuade people to want to work here and to keep working here, and therefore the improvements in hiring manager feedback and process, they string right through to people's experience in the workplace as well. So there's a whole opportunity for the industry there to really support clients.
But this process is slightly flawed, I think, because you know what I see a lot of is clients reaching out to recruiters and basically saying, help us with our D&I initiative. Really important. They're doing it, I think, more in a lot of cases because it's a tick box that they've now suddenly put at the top of the agenda in the boardroom. So therefore, we need to do something about it. We don't know much of it. We haven't really got time because we're doing all this other stuff we need to do. So here we go, recruiters, go and crack on for me. And then, but they won't allow recruitment organizations and recruiters to do their job properly. And that's the bit that really frustrates me, is we give you a load of stuff to do, but we'll give it to you contingently, we'll give it to you on all the stuff we talked about before. How the hell is a recruiter meant to do their job properly if our customers aren't allowing us to do the job properly in the first place? And that is a big issue. So then we then get tarnished with this brush that we don't deliver as well as we could do. We're not supporting the market with the proper D&I initiatives. Is it just a tick box for recruiters? Somebody needs to stop that and say, if you're taking this seriously and you have it as your number 1 or number 2 or number 3 agenda point on your board strategy, then you need to take your relationship with your recruitment company seriously as well. Let us do our job properly. And not only will we do a big tick box for you so you can tick that off, we will show you and prove to you the ROI you will get from doing this properly.
Sorry.
Go ahead,
I wanted to add to that, because actually it also needs a shift in the agency world as well. So I completely agree. I'm about to interview Chen Chan. And he was pushed back by the person he partnered with, and it's a company called InnoFlow, and this is all in Denmark. But this man said, no, we're not going to use traditional CVs. We're going to put them through our testing. And it was also making sure that the client understood what they really, really needed, which is a huge problem, which you talked about earlier. But when it comes to the personality side and the training for skills, and he ended up like seeing 5 people and almost hiring 2 or 3 of them that he would never have looked at if he'd gone the traditional route of actually seeing the piece of paper. And where that can help, and where this pandemic's been so tough, is ageism. I mean, definitely there's still a gender balance is wrong, but ageism is a huge problem, which again could also be got round. Because, you know, a lot of time the younger don't want to hire the older because they think, oh, they must be really boring, right? But then when they see, actually, no, they're the match, they have the match personality wise that we're needing to recruit here. They've got the skills, sure. So that's when the technology can really, really help as well. But it takes a hiring manager wanting to hear it, but that, you know, the agency shifting how they operate and pushing back, going, we've got this tech, we're going to operate like this. Well, look, I just see that happening, and that would be cool.
Yeah, and I think there's a moment here, and you both kind of slightly set up the logic behind our Recruitment for Recovery campaign generally, which is coming to what you were saying, James. Actually, it is about rallying to the flag. It's about us as an industry saying, no, we can do this differently, and we acknowledge there's some things we are going to change, but you have to acknowledge that you have to help us succeed. And some of that is in, you know, more exclusivity, more retained work, more time and space to focus. Some of it is in the training and development of our people and our digital services that we've already discussed. Some of it is absolutely in making that link to productivity. So when we did the report, the reason for the big focus on productivity is we know that productivity is a huge UK sore point. You know, as an economy, we've underperformed for years in terms of getting more per hour that we work. But there's been a big movement in British industry. I was involved with the setting up of Be the Business when it started in 2015. There's been a big movement to look at what the issue is, and it's that movement, which is FTSE 100 chairs and chief executives, has moved gradually from it's about how we set our companies up to it's about how we manage and lead our people. And I think that appreciation gives us a greater platform to start to tell a story that draws through. Now, the numbers in the report do that, but actually it's also about storytelling. Businesses, I've worked in at senior levels in British business for almost 20 years now. But businesses are interested in good stories of people who've made a difference, and then what they can learn from that. You know, it's why, you know, REC member groups fly. It's why TRN groups fly. People want to learn from other businesses. And I think increasingly as voices for the recruitment sector, what I want the REC to be doing is telling a story about, you know, the great work that Bronton Consulting's done to support their clients through the lockdown last year, and how that's flowing back to them now. There's a whole slew of things there that we can do that make a difference, and it probably just requires that steady accumulation of evidence to put some ammunition behind individual recruitment businesses as they try to make the change. James, you want to
definitely, and I think on one side you've got the emotive storytelling, which I absolutely fundamentally agree with, and I think we're not very good at that, and we need to be much better. And great, I think it's great that the REC do this they lead the industry in this, which is superb. But on the other side is that we've got to have the commercial data to be able to support the arguments of the things that we know work and just make logical sense. And I don't think we're good enough at doing that. You know, every recruiter should be armed with an infographic of data that explains and justifies, without them saying a word, of why working in a certain way is commercially, financially, and sensibly and better for the customer and for the candidate than it would be in a different way. We can prove it now. We have the data. And we don't showcase enough. So you've got the emotive stories, but I want that hard, real facts to say, when you work with an agency in this way, this is the impact it will make to your business. When you work with an organization who does something properly around D&I, this is the actual commercial impact it will make to your business. So yes, tick the box if you want to tick the box, if that's what you want to do it for. Yes, get emotionally excited about D&I because you think it's right, but also take it to the boardroom and prove to people that this is the right thing for your businesses. And we as an industry need to be pushing that data back.
We've got about 10 minutes to run, so I'm going to pick up a couple of questions that have come up in the question box and ask them. Katrina, why don't we start with, there's a question here about humanity, and I think it picks up on the themes of the book really clearly. So Gabrielle's asked, if we want to put more humanity in the recruitment process, what outcomes do we need to define for recruiters to reflect that goal?
Outcomes do we need to define?
I'm
not sure I understand the question, actually.
I suppose this is about how we judge a recruiter.
We need more coffee.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Always need more coffee. But yeah, I think it's about how we judge a recruiter's performance in this world.
I'm not sure. I don't know how to answer that. If we want to put more humanity in the recruitment, what outcomes do we need to define for recruiters to reflect that goal? I'm not sure I can answer that. Sorry.
So there's
because I'm not quite getting the question. I sort of think, to me, I take it back to, I know what you need to do to get more humanity in the process. I'm not sure what it has to do with the outcome. So that's my problem. I'm not connecting it in my head. To me, when I was writing the book, I got to chapter 5, which is all about the income strategy session. So that's all about you sitting there with your hiring manager, whether you're in-house or agency, and getting the actual information that you need from them. And that includes, like, where does the team fit in the overall purpose of the company, and who do they interact with, and it's sort of every little nitty gritty. And you're going in with all of your industry knowledge, and then agreeing an SLA, that partnership going forward. So I think if we're talking outcome, there would be more humanity if you got that bit right, because you would have your SLAs in place, there would be feedback, you'd be delivering that, you'd know the human in the process would get a great experience. And I would imagine the knock-on impact would be that your recruiters would have such a great relationship with their clients that they would get higher margins, sole business, exclusivity, and all those sorts of things. But I'm not quite sure that's what she meant. Sorry, Gabrielle. I'm drawing a blank. But I blame the time change.
I think I think that's fine right up until about the end of Wednesday. I think you can get away with that.
Can I?
And then obviously
old Labrador that wakes me up, so I never get a full night's sleep. Does that count as well? I'm like throwing everything in here now.
we go the other way. I've got a cat who wants to be fed at 4:30 every day, and it's now 5:30, which is actually more helpful. I think there's something in your answer there, though, Katrina, which is about kind of making the implicit explicit in your conversations with clients. So you're setting out the goals for delivery up front. And actually, Gabrielle's also asked about, how do we handle removal of bias and things like CVs. I think it's absolutely about making it all explicit. Actively having that conversation with clients really matters.
As a start, okay, SLA. I think bias starts right at the beginning. And it's like most of us are not curious enough with ourselves to even acknowledge we have bias. Right? I've been saying to people lately, this is dreadful. This is a confidential conversation amongst us. I have an intelligence bias. I really struggle with stupid people. So if I'm recruiting somebody who doesn't need to be intelligent to do that role, I'm probably going to struggle. So it's like, but I'm aware of it. So I've acknowledged it and I've gone, okay. So I have to then sit every single time I'm going through, is my bias getting in the way? It's really hard work. We are naturally biased creatures from all of our experiences. And even if I look at, the life I grew up in, my mother in 1959, when she got engaged to her first husband, had to resign. She only got engaged. So that, like, to me, that's sexism. I've just seen it. And that's just how life is. And I have to start going, no, hang on a minute. We're in 2021, I almost said 1921. In 2021, the world's changed. So you have to start questioning yourself all the time. And I think as recruiters, we open up a CV and our biases are right there. Yeah. And if we're not thinking, oh, I've just ruled them out because they didn't go to a university, or even having a gap, they've got a gap. And
professional skill set, isn't it?
And it's tough. It's complicated. It's not going to get fixed overnight. And that's where maybe technology can help, maybe.
But and it comes to the whole point about D&I. I was going to throw in an example
Mm.
earlier, and I missed it as we drove by, but it kind of fits here. So, I mean, I sat on the Parker Review Board for the CBI when I was there, which is the group that reviewed ethnic diversity of Britain's listed company boards.
Yeah.
And the conclusion you reached pretty quickly was that there were plenty of people out there who had the capacity to sit on FTSE boards. It's just they weren't anywhere where, well, some of them didn't want to. Most of them weren't in places where they'd ever kind of engage with that world. And I think it's about telling the stories of the companies that stand back from that and go, hang on, let's just try that again. But importantly, coming to James's point, drawing that through to commercial return. And we've seen businesses that have stopped recruitment processes, changed them, ended up with a more diverse return, and very clearly will hold their hands up and say, we have a better outcome because we did that, which is important. James, I'm going to throw you Brenda's question in terms of changing attitudes. What do you think about the supply chain issue here, where we've got, the recruitment supply chains, of course, particularly in this world of MSPs, are complex. Is there something in what the relationship between bigger players and smaller players in the supply chain in terms of how we can change attitudes across the sector?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, Brenda. It's already changing anyway, in the sense of the smaller recruitment companies are doing more RPOS vendor type solutions anyway, which is good. So it used to be in the realm, it has to be the bigger players to win it. It's not anymore. We've got some phenomenal examples and case studies across TRN this year where they've won, where small businesses, maybe 20, 30 consultants have won contracts that they really shouldn't have been winning based on historically what has always happened. And that's really, really exciting, I think. So number one, I think it's changing anyway, that who has the ability to win those relationships, that be at the top of that supply chain. And then the other piece around it is, the whole point of the Recruitment Network and why we set TRN up is about, it's a community where if we collaborate together, we can do so much more. I mean, it's not a novel idea. It's been around for decades, right? We all know this type of stuff. And I think our biggest competition is not each other, and it's the markets that we're facing, it's talent shortages, it's all the stuff that we've got. So it's how do we work collaboratively together to be able to do that? When you've got vendor situations and supply chains where you've got larger organizations treating smaller recruitment companies as basically in the same way they wouldn't want to be treated by their own customers, then guess what happens? The supply chain fails. It does not work. It causes problems. They may still get jobs filled, but it costs them more money to get those jobs filled, so their profitability drops, etc., etc. It just makes good common sense to treat anybody in a supply chain as an equal. And whether it be, as I said before, linear, client, candidate, supplier, or supplier, second tier, third tier, I don't mind which, but if we're all on the same level, we can make a significant difference and achieve the outcome that our clients and candidates are looking for. When we start fighting with each other or squeezing each other unnecessarily or that type of stuff, it just doesn't work. And the amount of collaboration we've seen this year where recruitment organizations have been passing business to each other, sharing ideas with each other, winning business that they shouldn't be getting, and then giving it to someone who's a specialist and doing a nice split deal with them. I mean, that is off the scale at the moment, which is fantastic. So I think it's a real opportunity here to come closer. I do think, by the way, I'll make this one thing I will say, if you are part of a current supply chain that where you are being treated badly, or it's not a profit way, walk away from it. If it's not profitable business, you walk away from that time. Maybe 6 months ago when we were desperate for anything, we'll take any jobs. Now, walk away from it, have a longer term view, and go and find better business, because there's plenty of it out there at the moment. The market is off the scale. There's so much business out there. So walk away from poor supply chains.
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about is that it's the humanity piece that's allowed that to happen. So where technology has been so amazing, I look back as, one person company. There are so many companies I couldn't have worked with, even in the early 2000s, because I was a one person company. They'd rather go to big, PLC or whatever. And now it's like all those barriers have gone, because I can create a really good human connection with other humans by paying it forward, giving great advice, by sharing, being collaborative, all those sorts of things. And that's what people want. And then they start working with those people.
Yeah.
It's the old cowboys who are just still going after the fee and slamming the phones. But they're not necessarily getting the business, like you said, James. It's the ones that are like, I'll be a proper partner to you.
Yeah, the sad thing is they are getting the business, though, Katrina. Well, that's the sad thing. They're actually making, so it creates this false environment. Doesn't mean they'll keep
the business.
Yeah, no, you're right. But the problem is because they're winning bits of business, they think it's okay, and I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And that's the.
But I think it will change. I think it will continue to change because the in-house. The changes within companies for talent acquisition, and I'm talking the bigger companies, because obviously there's always the SMB space that they're always going to use agencies because they can't necessarily have their own team. But I just think there is a shift. They don't want to work with people like that. But I think, Brenda, it comes to just saying, no, I won't put up with that. I was talking to a lady, and I mean, she's actually in Canada, and she's like one of 5 suppliers on an RPO, and they're all fighting for the same people, and everyone's throwing CVs, and I'm like, oh my God, for that end company, they must look so embarrassing in the marketplace, because the scarce developers getting hit up by 5 different agencies all the time about the same role at the same company, and it's just ridiculous. It's bad for them. It's bad for the recruiters on it. And I'm saying to her, walk away, go find new business. So
it's a really good place to start, because it's about pride in the offer that we make to candidates,
as
we make to clients. It's walking a bit taller where we start.
Yeah.
And
I'm here to work with you, equal. Sorry, I always do it as a physical thing, because I do think if we sit up, it makes such a difference in how your attitude is.
Well, listen, guys, we got to the bottom of the hour, and we filled the whole time. I think there's a really important takeaway here, which is recruitment's always going to be competitive. But one of the things that I picked up really strongly from the last year, and James, you just hinted at it as well, is that sense of the industry being mature, professional services, willing to kind of articulate the way we want to work rather more. Not for our own benefit, actually, but for the benefit of clients and candidates. That's at the heart of the REC mission. We talk about making great work happen. And this campaign is really about giving the whole industry a standard to rally behind on everything that we've been discussing in this past hour. So 2 things to leave people with. Firstly, if you want to engage in more of this conversation, the REC conference is on the 29th of June. Come along and join us from wherever you are. Had 1,000 people last year. We're looking for the same again, and lots more excitement set up for that. You can register online now for REC 2021. And secondly, of course, Katrina, James, thank you very much for joining us today. What a fantastic set of input from you both. Delighted to be working with you both, and I'm very keen to recruit you both to this standard that we're running with.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, Katrina.